is what do you see as the top 2 priorities for District 7 and why? So I'm going to draw randomly. And the first candidate to answer the question, what do you see as the top 2 priorities for District 7 and why, is going to be candidate Tatman. So I will put 2 minutes.
Thank you. And let me just go ahead and get it started. I was going to try to get a few extra seconds on you. So this is a topic in which I dedicated a lot of my professional career with, which is homelessness, housing the homeless and affordable housing, and also reducing homicide, violent crime. The reason why the homeless crisis and then affordable housing, because I group both of them together, because to me, it's not just one issue without the other issue. They're so much interrelated that you have to talk about both of them. I've been housing the homeless since 2016. I worked for an agency called Building Future with Women and Children. Here, we made sure that we got to the community and see those who was in need for housing and made sure we put all the resources in place to get them housing. I was out there doing the homeless count at 5 in the morning, which we seen 4,000 people sleeping on the streets. Homeless is the #1 issue, and this was my #1 issue when I ran for mayor of Oakland in 2018. And yet, 2 years later, we're still dealing with this issue. And it's simple. We need to build affordable housing. We need to create opportunities for people to move up in the housing chain so people can start to move into the lower income units. We need to develop more low income units. Homelessness is a big task, but it's simple to solve if you dedicate the resources and political will. Now, another thing is homicide. We've seen a recent spike, 75 homicide in a shelter in place year. We need to create more resources and opportunity to keep people focused on positive activities that limit their times doing negative activities, whether that's job training, housing opportunity, or where they can satisfy their family. This is some of the things we need to do, and these are the 2 issues in Oakland. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tatman. Okay, what do you see as the top 2 priorities for District 7 and why? Next candidate, Ms. Hodge, if you can unmute yourself. Ms. Hodge, here we go.
Yeah, got it.
Got it? 2
Yes.
minutes.
Yes, top 2 issues are homelessness and blight. How you see a thing is how you're going to treat it. And we have to get a hold of the blight issue where people are feeling very comfortable with coming into the city and dumping their trash. Homelessness is a top issue because it is a health issue. It is a mental issue for not only the homeless, but also those who are living around it, the encampments. And as we traverse back and forth in the city, it is an issue that worries people and it's overwhelming the city, certainly. And so we have to get a handle on that. Not only that, the city of Oakland has created a culture where we welcome in and we don't create boundaries around it. Anything you don't create boundaries around will overwhelm itself and create its own challenges and chaos. And so we have to do that because when we go into other cities such as San Leandro, other areas, we don't see the tremendous challenges that the city of Oakland faces. So homelessness and blight. For instance, folks, I came home today at my house on 102nd, and it was just 3 days ago that I work with the Beautification Council to pick up trash and to really try to eradicate a lot of the challenges that we have with trash dumping. And this is in an area just across the street, less than 50, maybe 100 feet away from my home, where we were able to get a lot of the dumped trash picked up. Well, I drove home last night and there was nothing there. Woke up this morning, came to the 102nd house, and again, someone has come back to dump loads of trash into the street. And so these are complicated issues, but they're practical solutions. to these fundamental problems. Again,
Thank you.
we
Ms.
need to install, okay.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. Great. Next, candidate randomly selected, candidate Clay. If you can unmute yourself and answer, what do you see as the top 2 priorities for District 7 and why? Candidate Clay. Here we go, ask to unmute. Here we go. Please forgive me. There we go.
Thank you. So thank you. So my 2 top priorities, I want District 7 to be a safe, healthy community. So my top 2 priorities are housing and economic security. Housing and economic security both affect our community health and our public safety. Housing, one, is foundational for a stable community. Without housing, it's hard to find and maintain a job, it's hard to raise a family, and the risks of getting sick are exponentially greater, as shown during this time of COVID and toxic wildfire fumes. So we have to provide housing that's adequate, provide for our unsheltered population. We have to provide housing that is healthy. We have an older housing stock, so we have to make sure that our housing stock is adequate to not cause the sicknesses that is occurring during our children, and our housing that's affordable, meaning affordable for our current residents and not just affordable by federal housing standards. The other part of it is economic security. So that means jobs that pay well enough to take care of a person's basic needs: food, shelter, healthcare, transportation. We need good, sustainable living wage jobs to provide benefits and not harmful, meaning a workplace that has sufficient PPP that has been adapted to be safe under the current conditions. Economic security for me means not only working for a company, but also our small and medium-sized businesses. So we need to provide stronger support for our local businesses. We need to help increase their marketing, financial, and legal capacity and help them make the transition to this post-quarantine life that's safe for our customers. And economic security also means addressing food scarcity. And currently it's our local community organizations and places of faith and nonprofits that are filling that gap. Last week I was volunteering at Homies Empowerment. Over 400 people came to get groceries and toiletries for themselves and their family. With the average family size of 5 people, that's 2,000 people that was served last week just by one organization. So housing and economic security are the most important 2 things for me right now in District 7.
Thank you. Next, we have candidate Jackson. If you can unmute yourself, candidate Jackson, and tell people, what do you see as the top 2 priorities for District 7? Robert Jackson, ask to unmute.
Okay, there it goes. Okay, thank you, Judith.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'm piggybacking on what Aaron said, and that's exactly what I believe as well. Affordable housing and economic growth and development are the 2 priorities for me. I think affordable housing will deal with the problem that we're having with the homeless people, because housing seems to be the largest issue. It was sad that Jerry Brown, when he became governor, cut out the funds for the redevelopment agency, which would have supplied or helped supply the housing that we definitely need. But he took the money and he put it in a rainy day fund. And so the redevelopment department was taken apart, and there's no more redevelopment agency that was supposed to help us build the housing that we need. And as a consequence of that, we don't have the housing that we need. And the developers only want to build market rate housing because they say there's no money in affordable housing. So we do have 12 pastors right now who have property, they have church property that they're willing to build affordable housing on. I'm working with them right now to secure finances so we can do just that. And not only that, but I have actually built 59 units down at 94th and International. And we're now in the process of building 55 more units across the street at 9401 International. So I'm familiar with building housing. I know how to get it done. I have done it, and we're in the process of building even more. And so and the economic, as far as the economic growth and development, I work with the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. I'm the founder of the chamber. I'm also the chairman emeritus. Kathy Adams, our president, and Shonda Scott, our chairperson, doing an excellent job with training and teaching and entrepreneurship and bringing in more businesses. And that's how we're able to hire our people who live in District 7, making wages to be able to live and continue to live in our district. I'm the only candidate with that experience, and I'm wanted to be your next city councilman.
Thank you, candidate Jackson. Next, we have Miss Reed. Candidate Reed, if you can unmute yourself.
I believe I'm unmuted. Is it showing on your end?
Brilliant. Go ahead.
The two areas for me in the midst of a number of areas would be public safety and housing stability. Public safety, specifically as we talk about our gun violence and high crime rates. The gun violence that we face, it's a public health crisis for us. 60% of those whose lives have been lost to gun violence in Oakland are Black. And more than half of those that have taken place this year in homicides are within East Oakland and come from within our beat. One life lost is too many. My family, we've experienced the deep trauma and loss of my daughter's oldest brother, Brandon, at the age of 22, who I loved as my son. Many families in our community are faced with that deep trauma of losing loved ones and the ripple effect that impacts us all. And so we've got to do a number of things to address the gun violence and public safety. We must transform OPD with trauma-informed policing. We've got to invest and reinvest towards the task force goal of 50%. We've got to ensure that there are public health dollars, state dollars, and other funding that comes back into our district and into our city. Funding interpersonal violence interrupters trained to mediate the threat of crime, investing in jobs, equitable education, and a number of other matters. I serve on the advocacy for Committee for Youth Alive, and I bring that fight right now at the local and state level. And then we have to support ballot measure S1, where we can strengthen police oversight and our responsiveness from officers in 911. Housing stability is critical. 70% of those who've been impacted are Black men and women. And so we've got to work to keep people housed and prioritize those who've been most disenfranchised in this housing crisis, building more deeply affordable homes, making sure that we have renter protections, mortgage and foreclosure protections, that we work to ensure the stability of those, our seniors and others who are fighting to stay housed, ensuring just cause protections, tenant protections, foreclosure protections, expanding rent moratoriums and rent forgiveness. I work to advocate on those issues now on the board of SAHA, and I will continue that fight for us.
Thank you. The next question, what would you do as our council person for District 7 to bring higher quality businesses to the area? So first candidate to answer is Mr. Clay. Candidate Clay, if you can unmute yourself. Ask to unmute. There we go.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, 2 minutes.
So this area, I believe I have by far the most experience in job creation. I funded a renewable energy company whose sole purpose was to bring jobs to the community. We partner with community organizations that do job training, and then we create large-scale community-sized projects that provide benefits not only in the jobs, but also the financial benefits for ongoing of 20 years. Is the type of projects that we do. Additionally, as a real estate attorney, a community development attorney, I've drafted extensive proposals and applications for federal tax funds to bring new businesses and jobs to underserved community. And you know, when we did that, it had to have certain metrics around community involvement, around community equity. So it's not just bringing any business to the district, they have to play a role and play their part in being a benefit and a part of the community that's aligned with our goals and priorities that we need here. And so now is a particular time, a special opportunity with green jobs, which is something that I've done a lot of work in. We have land in District 7 that needs remediation, brownfields, and that can be done by our local job training organizations here in Oakland. And these areas are perfect for a focus on logistics and distribution businesses with the Port of Oakland, with the airport, with freeway access, but also the green economy with green jobs that are labor jobs in construction, manufacturing, and technology. I was one of the co-founding steering members for the Oakland Green Jobs Fair and Green Jobs Summit, along with California Interfaith Power and Life, Margaret Gordon of the West Oakland Indicators Project, and Green the Church, where we had jobs. We did resumes right there on the spot and had people hired right there on the spot. And this is the type of thing that we should be doing in East Oakland. There's no reason we shouldn't have suitable jobs that are living wage union jobs here in Oakland. We have so much unused space in empty buildings and vacant lots that it's perfect for these types of high paying, secure, environmentally clean jobs. So that's what I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Clay. Next candidate to answer is candidate Tatman. If you can unmute yourself. Ask to unmute. Candidate Tatman?
Could you hear me?
Yes, brilliant. Go
Thank
ahead, 2 minutes.
So in order to bring quality business to the area, I think we need to invest in our small businesses and make sure that we have a thriving small business entrepreneurship opportunity for those who want to partake in establishing their own business. And that's to create business. Now, for our existing businesses, in which we also need to support, we need to focus overall on organic business growth, strategic business growth, internal business growth, and rapid business growth. This can be additional resources, reduce pricing of permits, and streamline that process so we can get people off the ground faster. This can be investment opportunities and providing low interest loans, micro grants or grants to help support the creation, existence, and continuation of small business and entrepreneurship. I've been working closely with the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. And we all know that they're trying to bring a Black professional NFL team to Oakland. But what people probably don't know, the person behind this, Ray Bobbitt, is actually an Oakland native, born and raised, and went through all Oakland public schooling as well. We need to make sure we have opportunity for us Oakland natives to create generational wealth. This means supporting one of my ideas, which is the Hagenberger Tourist Zone, in which we tap into the thriving pre-COVID tourist industry in the Bay Area, which is $100 million, billion-dollar industry. If you look at all the surrounding cities, Cannery Row, Monterey, Pier 39, San Francisco, Lake Tahoe, Napa, Silicon Valley. We have an international airport, and we can use these funds to funnel them back into the economy in D7 to grow business as well. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Tatman. Next, we have answering, what would you do as our council person to bring higher quality businesses to the area? We have candidate Jackson. Candidate Jackson, if you can unmute yourself.
All right, there you go. Thank you. And thank you for repeating the question. There you go. Thank you for repeating the question. I appreciate that. So I said I'm the founder of the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. And again, I want to take my hat off to Kathy Adams and also to Shonda Scott. I call them the dynamic duo, which have come together with a host of classes, a host of educational opportunities for entrepreneurs and people who desire to run businesses and to become business owners. They've also been working untiringly to build a resiliency fund, which they have been able to now receive more than $1 million. And they've been using the money to bail out small businesses right now, which would have gone under because of COVID-19. But because of the resiliency fund, we've been able to give those business monies to carry them through during this hard time. So I'm really excited about that. I think that would do a lot with bringing more businesses in. When businesses find out, especially small businesses, that our chamber is that kind of chamber which cares about its members and will take all of the care we can to make sure that they're educated, that they have tools they need to be successful. I think we'll have better quality businesses. They're able to hire locally, hire our people from District 7, and I'm excited about being able to give them jobs that they can afford to live in the city of Oakland and pay the kind of monies that they need to pay to have a wholesome life right here in the city. So I know that we are on the right track with developing more and more businesses and letting the businesses that are already been operating for years, know that we're there to support them during this time. And I'm thankful 19 years now, the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce have survived, and we plan on growing even more and growing more quality businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Next, we have answering, what would you do as our council person to bring higher quality businesses to the area? Candidate Hodge, if you can unmute yourself. You're good.
Thank you. As a
Well-
business, okay. As a business owner for the last going on 13 years here in East Oakland, I know that it's important for businesses to have funding. And so one of the first things that we need to do is work with our chambers to ensure that we are rallying for those funds. And then also working with Congressperson Barbara Lee, as well as Senator Harris, to increase the percentage of SBA loans for small businesses. Over the last few years, it's been about 2% or so that businesses have been able to have access to that, most especially African Americans who have had very limited access. We need to begin to create hubs in our areas. So for instance, the airport area, Hagenberger corridor would be perfect to create healthcare hubs, green hubs, technology hubs. We have easy access to Silicon Valley. But one of the foremost issues that many businesses have is safety and cleanliness. And we have to get a hold of that so that we can cheerlead and promote our city. The Foothill Square area is another area that we need to be building out, looking for an expansion of restaurants along the MacArthur corridor. There's a lot of traffic that comes to and fro to the to our local zoo, which is one of the best in the state. We've got to have someone that is a visionary, who is leading from the future and not from behind. So we need someone who knows where we're headed to, so that we can begin to move the city ahead of the trend or along with the trend, so that we don't get left behind in this COVID atmosphere that we're in, environment.
Great. Thank you very much. Next candidate, Ms. Reed. Great, 2 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, I believe we do have to be able to attract businesses that will be fully invested into our community, not ones that will just come here and be brick and mortar establishments, but ones who will commit to helping to improve the environment around us, to ensure that we've got economic empowerment and stability within our own community, and that gives back into the community as a good corporate business neighbor. Working with the Department of Economic and Workforce Development to ensure that we also have the staffing in place to be able to manage those opportunities of attraction with new businesses that will come into our community. But that said, we have to work to ensure that we also support the businesses who are here. It's been said, we've lost in this district this year over 100 businesses. So those are areas that we really need to work to uplift, coming together first with community, looking at the existing specific plans that have already had community to weigh in, and to see if those are goals that we need to continue to work with. Make sure that we're retaining and attracting 21st century industries in those STEM fields, in clean tech, in green technology, to make sure that our residents are able to apply and come a part of those incredible opportunities. Also through the Black Culture Zone, we've lifted up another component of making sure that we fund existing small businesses and provide technical support to them, and advocating for a resilience fund that will not only attract businesses, but keep our existing businesses here.
Thank you. Next question. There was a lot of questions about this. What will be your strategy to combat illegal dumping? First candidate to answer, candidate Tatman. If you can unmute yourself, candidate Tatman, and answer, speak to what will be your strategy to combat illegal dumping? Candidate Tatman, where did you go? There we go. Ask to unmute. Candidate Tatman, here we go. Candidate Tatman.
Thank you. I guess even the system's not used to my name getting called this much on the first go around.
Well,
Play a lotto ticket. Maybe I get lucky and win some money.
So first, your question is, what will be your strategy to combat illegal dumping? 2 minutes.
So we have to work with community and neighbors and get out there and clean. But this shouldn't solely be our job. This should be the city of Oakland job, the county job, to make sure trash is not sitting out there for a long duration of time, which encourage other illegal dumpers to dump, and it just builds up. I was canvassing this weekend, like every weekend, and we went past a business on 100 and MacArthur, probably like 102nd. Within that gate, trash was piled up this high. This can't be possible. We need to make sure that we address this immediately so the trash won't sit. We need to bring awareness and outreach efforts and put people on alert that if you see something suspicious, a truck, U-Haul truck, people backing into a quiet, dark area, that we need to be vigilant and make sure that no illegal dumping is about to happen. We need to reach out to our city officials more often to get them to come out and clean this mess out there, because it shouldn't reliably focus on neighborhoods. What get neighborhoods active and going out there and cleaning is because it's been sitting for too long. This is the reason why people in the community go out there and clean the trash, because they're tired of it. We need to establish a program with Waste Management and Waste Solution to lower fees. We know how expensive it is to dump. We need to make sure it's affordable so people can do it. We need to monitor hotspots, cameras installed, license plate readers, but we need to establish a community commission to oversee the footage to ensure complete community transparency. We need to provide neighborhoods with weekly dumping programs. Look, there's no denying that this will be an expensive job, but we should have never let it get this out of control in the first place. That's our fault for how much money we got to invest to clean this mess so we can clean our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Candidate Tatman. Next person to answer this question, Candidate Bob Jackson. You can unmute yourself. I'll give you 2
Okay.
minutes on the clock. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. This is one of the things I've been working on for quite a while now. And again, I'm not running on what I'm going to do. I'm running because of what I've already been doing. And I'm looking forward to even doing more, because I believe that we pay taxes to this city. We pay good taxes. And I don't believe we are getting the resources. We're getting what we deserve for the taxes that we pay. I'm going back to the old days when they talked about taxation without representation. And I don't think our councilman has done a good job as far as District 7 is concerned for quite a while now. And I think that the illegal dumping can be abated. I've worked out here many times. I just had the Men of Valor over on 85th and San Leandro. We cleaned from San Leandro, 85th, all the way down to the BART station. We were back up on 108th and MacArthur, where that church's chicken was, that just filthy. And where you talked about that place, Marchant, over there on Foothill, that lot belongs to the city. And there's no way in the world that if you were a private owner of that lot, the city would allow you to have such filth on that lot. And they do absolutely nothing about it. And I think it's because they do. I mean, nobody's saying anything. Nobody's acting like we even live out here in District 7. I think it's a shame. I think it's a shame, and I think it's a shame it's gone as far as it is. I would recommend catching those guys, which I know how to do it, and impounding their trucks. I guarantee you take a few of those trucks, they'll stop dumping in our city. And I guarantee you it'll work. We need somebody that's going to go there, that's going to put some teeth in the kind of laws that we have and get the job done, and quit fooling around with all these meetings talking about what we're going to do and what we need to do. We know what we need to do. We need to clean up our area, and we need to get what we pay our taxes for, and that is the resources that they have for everybody else, every other district. Why don't we have it in District 7? I will make sure we have it when I become city councilman.
Thank you. Next candidate to answer the question, what will be your strategy to combat illegal dumping? We have candidate Hodge. If you can unmute yourself, I will give you 2 minutes on the clock.
All right, great. I'm glad you asked this question. This is my 100-day plan, first installed into office. It's to continue working with the Beautification Council, who is in place already, that has cleaned up the area of Railroad along 85th and 98th. here in my neighborhood along the 102nd and East Street corridor, where we have just large amounts of just infestation of rodents and dumping and encampments. And so we have to work with someone who's already in place. And this council has been working with the district attorney's office to prosecute, the sheriff's department, as well as OPD and the city of Oakland's work. I just dropped the name, but our city, cleanup services. We have to begin to attack this problem head on. The DA's office has 5 cameras are ready they have purchased that are ready to be installed. We've got to install those cameras. We've got to increase the fines. The fines have to start between $5,000 on up to $10,000 for second offenders. We can't afford to continue this deterioration of our city. And so we need someone that's going to go in and attack the problem initially forward on and not be shy about it. So that certainly is what I would do. I'm already working with the Beautification Council, and we already have a pilot program here with Alameda County, the Sheriff's Department, the DA, that is enforcing a lot of this. We need to also change the charter so that we can pick up these abandoned cars much quicker than having to wait several weeks for the city to be able to tow them. We've got cars sitting along the San Leandro corridor that are right next to Pick and Pull. We need to work out a partnership with them so that if cars are thrown there and just abandoned, it would allow the Pick and Pull to take those cars on in and put them with the other stored cars. These are practical solutions to fundamental problems. It's not brain surgery. We just need someone that's going to actually be an advocate and do it. We can't hear you.
You're on mute. You're muted, Judy.
Sorry, friends. Candidate Clay, if you can unmute yourself and answer, what will be your strategy to combat illegal dumping?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked about a strategy because I think we all want it cleaned up. But it has to go beyond that. We need to have a multi-pronged approach to stop illegal dumping moving forward. And that does start with the community. We're proud to live here. We deserve a clean, dignified place to live. And we need to crack down on anybody who leaves their trash in East Oakland and takes off. So we need to incentivize the community to be on the lookout for those dumpers. And the way we do that is show that we have respect for our community and the city is going after the people who are dumping. As Marcy mentioned earlier, we know that there are hotspots that the city cleans up semi-regularly and people continue to come back and dump illegal garbage. So I would propose a pilot program between neighbors, the local NCPCs, OPD, and the Alameda County District Attorney's Office, where we clean up a small area, maybe a precinct, work together, clean up to perfection. We have cameras on those hot dumping spots, and we position them to catch the people in the act, and either cite them on the spot or track them through their license plate. And we increase the fines for repeat offenders, the same way we do sort of copying the sideshow violation model of impounding vehicles for 30 days automatically, along with citing them on their driving record. They catch the license plate, issue the citation, confiscate the vehicle if the dumping is proven. And if we can do one area like that, make it totally off limits to dumpers, we can scale that and quickly expand it upward to extend to all of East Oakland. And to do that, we need to work with the city attorney to create, I would suggest, a blight court, one for landlords who don't keep their properties up to date, but also for people caught dumping garbage on public and private property. So we can really work with some intention and some momentum and not just keep cleaning up the same spot over and over again. We have to have some consequences behind people's actions, and that's what I suggest we would do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have candidate Reed. Candidate Reed. There we go. Candidate Reed, I have unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, brilliant.
Yes. I would just say that, we talk about we deserve community vitality and a healthy community, but we demand healthy communities. We demand the issues of illegal dumping and blight to be addressed so that we can live in a safe, clean, walkable environment with clean school paths for our children and addressing equitably the issues that we have before us. And so I believe that we have to track, we've got to report, we've got to enforce, and we've got to fine violators. Measure RR is before us to lift that cap above 1,000. And we've got to invest more equitably into District 7. Right now, our district is one of the most impacted, if not the most impacted district in the entire city. And yet we share resources with the second most impacted district, District 6. And so we have not received our equitable resources, staffing to proactively address the issues that we have. We need to move from a complaint-based system to a proactively responding system that doesn't just rely on the technology tools, because people have the digital divide that we're faced with, and the tools have not always worked for me. We've got to create jobs through community-based organizations for our youth and young adults to help beautify and create a culture of cleanliness, and ensuring accountability with all of our priorities at the city and the county level, with coming together more collaboratively with them. When I worked for then Assemblymember Nancy Skinner, I worked across all of those agencies to address the very issues that we have now, our county partners, our city partners, and even at the state level. I've worked with Caltrans to address even though their areas and the railroads that have not been maintained. I believe that we've got to fully fund our illegal dumping program, make sure that it's fully staffed, and we've got to invest in community projects that are ongoing, tree planting, beautification, things that I've done through my employers in investing back into District 7, even through my role at the recycling firm. And we've got to make sure that there's a camera program that we invest in for ongoing capturing of these issues in hot spots, blighted areas that are known to us.
Thank you,
I'll share that. So a community beautification program is something that I would launch as well.
So we have our next question is, if elected, what will you do to address vacant houses? What policy solutions are available to secure vacant properties? Would you support people experiencing homelessness being moved into vacant houses as in a formal fashion by the city? And if so, how? So first candidate to answer, we're going to go with Mr. Aaron Clay. Has to unmute. You can unmute yourself, Mr. Clay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, 2 minutes on the clock.
Great. So when we talk about vacant housing, I mean, I work a lot in housing as a real estate attorney. So the first question would be for me is, why is it vacant? So we would have to check and see if it's up to code or not up to code. So if it's not up to code, the first thing we need to do is provide resources and access to financing for those landlords to help remedy the issues. And I'm talking about sort of the small landlords that, you know, it may be vacant because they can't bring it up to code because they don't have the funding for it. And that's something that I'm doing right now. I'm working with a Black technology company to identify housing that's inhabitable, to match it with financing from green social impact financing, local job training programs to help remediate and fix those, make those repairs to bring the housing into productive use for the people who live here now. The second thing is we have to hold the landlords accountable for when they're responsible for totally preventable blight. I know a lot of these landlords are out-of-town landlords who have no reason to care or clean up their lots before their competitors. So we need to address that. If they don't fix it up to code and they have the ability to do so, we should have a nuisance program that purchases houses for a scattered site family housing program. That would either be managed by Oakland Housing Authority or an experienced housing nonprofit for low-income families. We want to have as few vacant houses as possible. Housing is a resource in our community and we can't waste it. We have to be proactive about finding and filling vacant houses in a legal way. So even obtaining 10 to 15 houses a year through eminent domain, if the landlord doesn't bring the house up to code, that helps our housing stock and helps our homeless and housing problem. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have candidate Mr. Tatman. If elected, what will you do to address vacant houses? What policy solutions are available to secure vacant properties? And would you support people experiencing homelessness being moved into vacant houses in a formal fashion by the city? If so, how? So Mr. Tatman, gonna unmute you. Great.
Okay, cool.
2 minutes on the clock.
First thing we need to do, and I'm a practitioner researcher, we need to research and see how many vacant properties Oakland have and base whatever actions off that data we retrieve with the vacant properties. Um, we do need policy solutions. If a property been sitting for far too long and is so far under the code, maybe we need to do an eminent domain and take that property under the city and rehab it. We do need to have rehab funds available for small business landlords, mom and pops, who can't afford to rehab their unit to get it up to code. We need to make sure that we have our inspectors out there being our eyes and ears, making sure we don't have another ghost ship situation under our hands in which we know what properties are the hotspots, but even if we know that we act upon that information and create a system where we can get people up to code. We can utilize the community land trust to make sure we have the funds available to purchase property. Now, another part of the question asks, do you support people experience homelessness being moved into a vacant unit in a formal process? Absolutely. We need to have funds available for those type of houses where we can get them up to code, and instead of putting them on the market or selling them to the developers, we can actually create a buyer's program to sell them to the residents who need them the most. And we do that with support. We be their advocate when it comes to reaching out to HUD to make sure we have those loans so we can have the purchasing power, or they can have the purchasing power to purchase that house. Yes, we absolutely need to support people moving in those houses if we're dealing with a situation where the house been vacant, instead of letting it sit.
Thank you. Next person, candidate Bob Jackson. If you can unmute yourself. Go S2.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes, I would like to see, or rather, I'd like for the city of Oakland to recreate the Housing Conservation Department, which I worked in for 5.5 years as a building inspector. And I want you to know the Housing Conservation Department does just that. But for some reason, we don't have it anymore. So a lot of things that we had and was working, and it was working, we know it can work. We need to just bring it back instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. And what happened, we need to lean on absentee landlords to make them keep their properties up, to work with them on that. We also need to work with Alameda County, with the supervisors to talk with the tax assessor's office to make sure that those houses that are delinquent with taxes and all of that, that the city would have first priority instead of selling them on the courthouse steps. City would have first priority to buy those houses, renovate those houses, and put them back on the market for homeless people to be able to get to have a house, and to go to Oakland Housing Authority to make sure we can get Section 8 vouchers. And while we have them in those houses that the city would run, we could also make sure they have the resources that they would need in order to become fully employed and everything that the tools that they would need to become successful. We can do it. There's over 3,000 vacant lots and houses in the city of Oakland right now. I passed by many of them today, just sitting there abandoned, boarded up, some of them not even boarded up, and people are going in and out of them. I'm telling you, just a fire hazard getting ready to happen. I saw them with my eyes today in District 7. We can make sure that we can take those properties back over. We can resurrect eminent domain and use it for the right reason, and not just destroy homes as a gentrification process they did years ago when they put the Coliseum in. Out where it is right now. We could use it to take these houses that are abandoned, that's been abandoned by their owners, that are way behind with taxes, revive those houses, rehabilitate them, and make them available for the homeless.
Thank you. Next, we have Marcy Hodge, candidate Hodge. You can unmute yourself. Miss Hodge, where did you go? My list. Here we go. Miss Hodge. There you go.
Great. Yes, the vacant houses, they do add, of course, to an increase of fines as well as blight. And I understand there's a term called trap houses. At my program on 66, we deal with a home that has been taken over, and it creates just a multitude of problems throughout the last few months that they have been there. We've got to turn liabilities into assets. And so I would propose that we have programs that are looking at and finding these homes that are vacant and working with the owners, or if it's abandoned, to work with the county to take over the home. I do support the idea of taking the vacant homes and using them to assist the homeless and the those who are chronically homeless. We certainly can create programs. Now, for me, we have to do a real kind of assessment to identify if the homeless person or family, if there's mental health challenges that need to be assessed and attended to, if how we can create stability, because we don't want to move people into programs or to homes, and that creates a challenge, because many times what happens is people will move other folks into the homes, and then you've got like 20 or, depending on the size of the home. The home that I'm standing in now was invaded. I went out of the country and I came back. The fence was locked. I couldn't get inside, had to climb over the fence to access my own home. Fortunately, I was able to call quite a few family members to help get the invaders out. But they had essentially moved into my home while I was gone. I had the roofer and electrician working. They thought maybe I, had given the keys to someone. So these are challenges that I certainly have been have had to deal with. And it's an issue that we have to very carefully craft a kind of program that is going to assist with
Thank you, Candidate Hodge.
decreasing the number of vacancies.
Great. We're going to turn it over to Candidate Reed. Reed, if you can unmute yourself, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. I absolutely believe that we have to understand what is that population of vacant homes, but establishing a policy, adding to that policy is going to be critical to us. I believe that for those that are privately owned, where we have those who are unhoused living in those homes, that we have to make sure that we don't criminalize or illegally take any action against those who are unhoused, but work to ensure that we provide housing for them. And so if the city can establish through their housing trust fund and partnerships with the county and state to make sure that those vacated properties that may also have those who are unhoused in can have a shelter. Perhaps those homes that are vacated are vacant, we can use for unhoused sheltering, transitional homes, that funding that we get from our housing trust, from other bond measure dollars can go into making sure that we begin to convert more of the housing that we have available as vacant property to housing shelter for those in need. We've had some creative solutions that we've come up with the county and the state, and I think that we need to continue to look more creatively at how we utilize existing buildings to provide housing, but also ensure that we don't have corporate takeover of the vacant stock that we have and that we hold them accountable. I supported the 2018 Measure W for the Oakland vacant property tax, which established that annual tax of $3,000 to $6,000 on vacant property. And it is our hope that that tax will activate those vacant homes to either be sold or rented or acquired to help reduce the housing pressure that we face here. I support ensuring that we've got equitable land use strategies to combat the gentrification that also causes some of the issues that we're facing with. I believe that those vacant properties can be turned into affordable home ownership opportunities for those people like me, where I bought my first home through an affordable home ownership property that leads us to establishing wealth equity and family stability in ways that we don't see taking place for those of us here in East Oakland. So that, along with some other established policies and partnerships with the county and the state officials, I'd be more than happy to lead out for us.
Thank you, Candidate Reed. Our next question is number 5. We are halfway through our questions. What are your opinions about the homeless encampment management policy that's before council on October 20th? Do you support it or not? And if so, why? So first we have candidate Aaron Clay. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself, candidate Clay, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Great, thank you. So one thing, I do appreciate Lauren Taylor and the council for actually beginning that discussion. It's been far too long that things have just been sort of wild, wild west chaos with people being everywhere. And it is a balancing act. So the first thing is I appreciate the discussion getting started. And I think that's a start. However, the draft policy creates a policy of where homeless encampment should not be. Some of which I agree with, some of them I have questions about because I don't know where do we go from there. So 150 feet from a school, I agree with. I worked at Markham Elementary School teaching fourth graders, 10-year-olds for a year, which is right next to Eastmont Mall. And we had maybe 3 cars that, people, that was their home. They lived in there and it was right next to the playground. And so the kids would run over to me and say, Mr. Clay, why is that lady changing clothes in her car? Why is she sleeping in a car? That car's been there forever. And, you have to have those discussions with kids that is unfortunate about, the life of District 7 right now. So that's something we need to change. I don't think kids and homeless population mix. So I do believe in distancing them away from that. 50 feet from a residence or business, I understand the residence, but I'm curious about how the businesses are categorized because there's lots of industrial businesses in District 7 that have long, block-long type buildings with no walking traffic. And under the regulations, they're defined as between high sensitivity areas and low sensitivity areas. And I'm curious how, although it's next to a business, it's no walking traffic in that area. There's no residents in that area, how that is considered a high sensitivity area. Also, we need to have regular garbage pickup. We need to have washing facilities and storage units at sanctioned camps. And, many people don't want to leave their possessions to go get needed services because they're afraid their possessions will get trashed. So we need to deal with that and provide storage.
Thank you, candidate Clay. So the next question, the question is, what are your opinions about the homeless encampment management policy that's before council on October 20th? Do you support it or not? Why? Next, we're going to move to candidate Tatman. If you can unmute yourself, I will give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Do I support it? Of course. Whenever we implement or introduce policy or legislation to address this critical need and to define it, of course I support it. But we do need to tweak it and make sure that we're not targeting certain people based off the area they're in because it's next to $1 million residence, for example, or high functioning business. I mean, we need to treat it all the same. But what's baffling to me is California being one of the biggest economies in the world, Oakland being one of the biggest cities in California, that we're even talking about encampments and not housing. First and foremost, let me go in deeply into the work I've done with housing the homeless. We provided wraparound services. We provided subsidies, rapid rehousing. We connected them to certain programs that they needed that connection. We need to make sure we have these tools available for people to get them housed first and foremost. So we won't have to worry about justifying or defining what an encampment is, where they can be and where they can't be. They need to be in the house. Housing is a human dignity. It's something that should be afforded to everyone, no matter what income you're at, because we understand that most people who probably can't work for certain reasons won't be able to afford market rate, even in some cases, affordable housing. So we need to make sure we focus on keeping people housed, getting people housed, and making sure they have a roof over their head, and not focusing on what encampment is legal and what encampment is illegal. But when it comes down to the question, I do support it because we need to give people a spot to live, but we need to focus on housing the 4,000 plus we have homeless sleeping on the streets right now in the city of Oakland.
Thank you, Mr. Tutman. Next, we have candidate Jackson. If you can unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. First of all, the homeless encampment management policy, I do support. The only problem I have with it is it's an attempt to do something regarding the homeless problem. And so homeless encampments, though, are not to be seen as a solution to homelessness, but a Band-Aid for a temporary fix. The governing mandate needs to strictly adhere to and provide the resources that those people living in the encampments would need in order to make them successful, and in order for them to come out of that in a reasonable time and be able to acquire and receive their own housing. So homeless encampments, I believe, are locations where one or more homeless people live in an unsheltered area. And when I look at this whole concept, I think it's great because when you look at Paradise and the fire that happened to Paradise, the city of Paradise last year, 15,000 people were homeless almost instantly because of the fire, and it burned them out, but they had nowhere to go. So what they did was they set up a homeless encampment, and what they did, they had showers, they had bathrooms, they had a portable cafeteria and whatnot. They fed the people, they housed them in tents. It was clean, it was sanitary, it was nice, it was safe. So we know it can be done. What's interesting to me is why we can't do the same thing they did in Paradise here in the city of Oakland and maintain those encampments at clean and healthy and sanitary, and make sure that those people have the resources that they need to become successful. I think we can do it. As I said, we've got 3,000 empty homes and vacant lots that we could easily put in campus, so they're not all concentrated in one area, which we have a tendency to do too much of. So I'm for the homeless encampment, but I just want to make sure that it's ran in such a way that it's clean, it's decent, and to have the resources they need to be successful.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Marcy Hodge. What are your opinions about the homeless encampment management policy that's before council on October 20th? Do you support it or not? Mr. Dutton. We're going to go to Ms. Hodge. I will give you 2 minutes on the clock, candidate Hodge.
Okay, great, thank you. I do support the program. I think actually it should be more than 50 feet away from homes as well as schools. We have to get a hold of this this issue of homelessness, and we have to insulate and create a process where we are with dignity, treating our neighbors and our brothers and sisters with respect. It is not of honor and respect that we allow people to just be out in the streets, unkept or not having access. We have to look to the future. So we need to create communities, small communities with small housing, so that people can, when they're homeless, they can use those services, tiny homes, communities, where they can access a temporary program to get back on their feet and to have access to jobs, mental health, and all of that. As I said, my home on 102nd is less than about, the encampment is about 100 and maybe 20 or 30 feet. But I try to keep my home clean, landscaping and all of that. These kind of dumping issues, the blight that we have, the homelessness, it brings rodents, it brings a lot of different challenges. The other day when I pulled up, there was a rat about that big lying dead on the street. The other day, the trash that was thrown about, there was a dead chicken that someone had stolen from the school next door. We have to consider the challenges that we have within our communities. And so we have to create spaces that are with dignity, that will help people to live and be willing to access those kind of programs. So my proposal is that we have a plot of land, we create a small, tiny home communities where we have over, a few hundred homes where people can have access to that. And they don't have to try to figure out if I can live under a bridge or so. So I would say we need to increase the distance.
Thank you, Ms.
And we need to create space specifically for that.
Now we are going to candidate Reed. If you can unmute yourself, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock to answer. What are your opinions about the homeless encampment management policy that's before council on October 20th?
Oh, okay, I was waiting for you to push it. I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that it's a great direction that we're moving in to have a written policy. I do believe that from hearing from a number of community members, particularly in some of the hotspot areas of South Stonehurst, Sobrani Park, and just other areas along San Leandro, even businesses, that there was not sufficient community input as that part of the policy was developed. We certainly have an opportunity to come to council on October 20th and weigh in now between the 20th to ensure some of those key areas we want to have established in that policy. One, just even making sure that we understand the accountability. Right now, I don't know that it's very clear as to who is going to fully manage, who is the key contact or the primary contact that we can work through to address the issues that come up for us in community and to come out of tracking and holding accountability for this policy. No additional funding was established for this policy. And so that's a concern. We know that we just budgeted some significant dollars, over $50 million for homelessness care, wraparound services, housing, and we know that that's still not sufficient. And so with this policy, we need to ensure that there's funding to go along with it. Otherwise, it's just a policy. So we need more community convening and input. We need to ensure that there's accountability with who's actually managing and tracking and overall responsibility with coordinating the efforts out of the policy. And we need to make sure that there's dollars invested, adequate and sufficient dollars invested to help keep people, one, first housed, but those who are not housed, to make sure that we can manage the temporary conditions that they're in as we work to bring them into permanent housing solutions. And we also need to ensure that our rail lines are held accountable. I know that they fall under the federal jurisdiction, but I believe that we can do more through the Department of Transportation to make sure that they're accountable for maintaining and keeping those environments safe and free from those who have found refuge near or on the tracks.
Thank you. Our next question, number 6, is there's continuous noise in District 7 from sideshows, fireworks, and music that occur in violation of Oakland Municipal Code. What policy solutions can you identify that would help enforce already existing code? So we are going to go to Miss Marcy Hodge. If you can unmute yourself and go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah, I would say I know that we have at least 10 to 15 different codes that are just not enforced at all. With my business being, I travel between 3 homes during the day. A home on 102nd, a home on 66, and then a home in the hills on Sun Valley. I know what the differences are. We can't get any kind of support over the years. Like I said, I've been in business for the last 12 years. I've had homes in District 6 and 7 for the last almost 20 years now. Calling the police is of none effect. The fireworks, it's noise pollution, it's environmental, mental, physical, and just personal safety that we deal with on a daily basis, and they have to be enforced. We don't need anything new. What we need is for these laws to be enforced. The noise pollution, with my program, Developmentally Disabled Kids, this year alone, we heard fireworks going throughout the neighborhood for at least 3.5 months. It gives you an inability to be able to get rest. Those seniors who live or my neighbors, whether it's here on 102nd or on 66, you can't get much rest. I was visiting constituents over here on Russet and 105th. Homeless encampments, the noise pollution, the danger that neighbors feel that they're in, because if they report it, nothing will happen. They won't move the encampments. And so they feel like they're in prison in their own homes. We've got to be able to move forcefully to get a handle on the challenges and the culture that Oakland has created with our leaders of being non-responsive to the issues that myself and my neighbors face on a daily basis. Again, we've got to enforce, we've got to create, roundabouts in areas where the sideshows are happening. Here, right on the front gate of mine, gate has been run into several times. I know the issue.
Thank you. Next, we have Aaron Clay, candidate Clay. If you can unmute yourself, candidate Clay. Sorry, let me find you in the list. There we go, candidate Clay. I've unmuted you. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can answer the question.
Great. The continuous noise is a real concern and it does have real health impacts. I think the key word is continuous. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to identify the fireworks that have been going on this year, especially more than any other time, that have been continuous. I mean, they go on for hours at a time. So there's no, and I know people are calling and complaining about it, but that doesn't seem like it's been a priority for OPD to come stop people from fireworks when they're not going anywhere and they're pretty simple to find. It's, they're not hard to find. With the sideshows have been going on in Oakland for years. I know when I was younger, there used to be sideshows and it was more spontaneous and it was a little bit different. But now we have sideshows that are a lot more dangerous and they're not spontaneous. And they're actually being organized by specific organizer who are putting up cash prizes for the best tricks and things like that on public streets. So we need to have a sideshow task force and bring some of the younger people out of the OPD Academy who understand social media, who can track these organizers and document that they're promoting illegal activity on our Oakland streets, and we need to convict them. I mean, I think that that's something that we haven't done, and there is a way to go after them. We use the same technology that they use to promote it and to disturb our communities to convict them and to stop it. And I think that's something that we should look into that we haven't done. So those are the two main, and music. Same thing. I mean, it just needs to be enforced. I see people blasting, their music, 8x8 pile driver speakers, and they drive right by the police and with impunity. So that is something that we just have to enforce. The sideshows, I think we can create some new policies around it to catch them, but fireworks and music, we just have to be better about enforcing the current laws.
Thank you, candidate Clay. Next, we are going to go to Marshawn Tatman. Mr. Tatman, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay, could you hear me?
Yes.
So this is a big issue, and it has been an issue going on since the early 90s when I was, 10 or 9, where the sideshow was stationary at Eastmont Mall. Nothing has changed. Do we need to enforce the laws better? Of course, but how long do we need to try to improve enforcing these laws and it's still not working? Let me go to the fireworks real quick and then I'll come back to sideshow. We know there's a tipster line whenever you have fireworks. That don't work. Fireworks looking like we in bad day. We know that when it comes to the sideshows, we do the 30-day impounding, speed traps or traps in general. That has not worked. We've been dealing with this for over 30 years, and I think we need to change this conversation to reimagining how the sideshows occur, because in Oakland, everything we've been doing for the past 30 years, no matter what, just doesn't work when it comes to sideshows. I think we need to create a safe space to do it legally, and we can include this space in the Hagenberger Tourist Zone and charge a fee so we can protect safety for the participants and for the spectators, and we create a controlled environment. This past weekend, a lot of people went down to the Sacramento Raceway, in which they was drag racing legally, doing it in a safe space where it don't impede on the streets of Oakland or in the streets of Sacramento, wherever it might be. This is the route we need to go, because how much more money we gonna put in something that's gonna continue to happen until my little one becomes my age? We need to create a safe space. We need to charge an entry fee, and we need to do it at the Hagenberger Tourist Zone.
Thank you, Mr. Tatman. Next, we have candidate Reed. Ms. Reed, if you can unmute yourself, and the question is, there's a continuous noise in District 7 from sideshows, fireworks, and music that occur in violation of Oakland Municipal Code. What policy solutions can you identify that would help enforce already existing code? And I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
Oh, yes. I think these are all issues. I live in the midst of all those concerns that have been brought up. It's certainly a concern for public safety. It's concern for just mental health and just for quality of life. Those are issues that we've all dealt with too long. And certainly during COVID, those issues were heightened even more, particularly with months of fireworks and a lack of enforcement. And so we've not had adequate staffing to enforce the issues of noise nuisance and those violations. I believe that within the current policies that we need to establish OPD having a non-emergency call center that's staffed and accessible to really report the issues, but also to respond to the issues. We need funding and staffing for responsiveness to the issues. I know that many calls go in, but there's a lack of responsiveness to even address those issues. I'd say for the sideshows, I absolutely agree with what's been said about looking at what a new strategy can be. Bringing those from community, from our NCPCs, from community, from OPD into a place where we can have dialogue and discussion around those issues. Those are real safety issues for those who attend, for those who happen to just drive into those areas, not even warned about what's taking place. I do not lean towards criminalizing because most of those who are involved in that sideshow activity are Black and brown men and women who are over criminalized and have been unjustly served. We can provide job opportunities, workforce opportunities. We can look at a safe place to legalize that type of activity, ensuring that there's insurance and liability and all those things that I believe I heard NASCAR started in at one time. And so we have to look at how do we address those issues without criminalizing those who have been a part of a culture that we've allowed to exist because we've not adequately addressed or responded to the root causes that can contribute, along with holding people accountable.
Thank you.
And staffing to
Next,
respond.
we're going to move to Mr. Bob Jackson. Candidate Jackson, if you can unmute yourself. I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock, okay?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a problem for police. We do have municipal codes, but unfortunately, we do not have the police officers to enforce them. Our police department is understaffed to meet the needs of our city, except for the sideshows, fireworks, and music would not even be considered priority. We need to first secure a police chief, and I recommend one from within, from in-house. LaRon Armstrong, Deputy Police Chief, been a wonderful police officer for many, many years. I recommend him for being the next police chief. And secondly, that we have a campaign to recruit local residents to become police officers to police our own community. And I recommend the helicopters going back to the air. They could quickly spot that sideshow starting and have police there. All you have to do is show up, put the sirens on, and they'll disperse in a hurry. They love it. It's a lot of fun for them. They call it fun and everything. We know it's hazardous, but they have fun with it. So the other thing is when you look at the music and you look at the fireworks are not only firecrackers and whatnot, but also guns being shot in our community. But I see expended shells and bullets that has hit my place at the church and hit different places in the street. We see bullets. People are shooting guns up in the neighborhood. And so there's a lot going on. But if the police are tied up with the more violent crimes and the more, they say 2,000 calls go to 911 and the majority of them come out of District 7, calling for police to come and do something about something. So we need to revisit that whole thing about the police 911, who calls, what kind of responses should they make and how they prioritize. We need to do all of that. And lastly, they legalize weed. You can smell weed all over the place as they're speeding up and down our street.
Thank you,
I think it's a shame.
Thank you, Candidate Jackson. Our 7th question is, the conditions of many roads in District 7 are very deteriorated and were not addressed within the latest 3-year paving plan. I'm going to mute you, Mr. Jackson. How would you make sure you represent our voices and make sure the streets that we identify in our neighborhoods are repaired and maintained? We are going to start with Mr. Aaron Clay. I will unmute you and give you 2 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Well, I do agree with the premise that the conditions of the roads in District 7 are atrocious. When you compare it to the other districts, Montclair, the Lake, even West Oakland. And that's just, I mean, a lack of leadership. We're supposed to have an equity plan where things are done equitably. And I don't believe that the road paving process was done in such a way. And the transportation, the transportation changes with the transportation, Department of Transportation and traffic, wasn't done with enough community input, wasn't done with enough community insight as far as how we use our roads and where we drive. Our residential streets, there are potholes that cause severe damage, and we shouldn't have to wait until after everybody in my family has had to make a report about a pothole for their car. And we shouldn't have to wait until our car is damaged where we can't drive it to try to call 311, try to file that report and get, you know, that tire that was blown out or that piece that fell off because of a 6-inch pothole. It's about, we need a strong advocate. We need somebody who really has the courage to say, this is wrong. This is not the way that this process needs to be. We need to be first. We have some of the worst roads. So we need to fix this now. And you just haven't seen that. And it's been a real problem. And that's one of the things that I really want to see changed. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next, we are going to go to Ms. Hodge. The question is, the conditions of the roads in District 7 are very deteriorated and were not addressed within the latest 3-year paving plan. How would you make sure you represent our voices and make sure the streets that we identify in our neighborhoods are repaired and maintained? So Ms. Hodge, I will unmute you and give you 2 minutes on the clock, okay?
Okay, great. And then just for a point of clarification, I have the questions in front of me, so we can, if you want, you don't have to read them for when you come to me.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Judith. Of course, we have the challenges of East Oakland, you know, where we see the big rigs driving our streets. Those big rigs create a lot of the potholes that we, you know, we suffer through. And the city has to be mindful that District 7, number one, because we have probably the largest number of, aside from West Oakland, but theirs is mitigated because when you get off the freeway, they're kind of right there and not necessarily traversing through the neighborhoods. But for East Oakland, we get a lot of the potholes induced in our streets because our the thoroughfares, International, San Leandro Boulevard, and, you know, once in a while MacArthur, but certainly those two areas create a lot of traffic for those big rigs to come, and it creates a lot of havoc for our cars. So we've got to prioritize District 7. We need someone that is going to, as Clay said, advocate. Politics bereft of advocacy is status quo. We can't afford for the same old leadership style to go forward. We need someone who's going to come into the office and not care about politics. We need someone who's going to build relationships and also get things done. I promise you, I'm not going to be in office and take a long nap until I'm ready to go. We need someone that's going to be awake, that's going to advocate, and that's going to fight for District 7. So we've got to look at that paving plan proposal. Well, I'm sorry, not proposal, but the 3-year paving plan. Look at the inequities and go back to council and say that District 7 we're deteriorating. Our community is simply in deterioration because it has not had someone to fight and advocate for District 7. We've got to, of course, collect that data. One of the challenges that we do have many times, we've got to, and this is part of my 100-day plan when I'm in office, is to educate, eradicate, and enforce with a lot of these different challenges.
We are going to go on to candidate Tatman. Candidate Tatman, I am going to unmute you so you can unmute yourself. And I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Again, I take that side because this is an issue we're constantly dealing with. Oakland is always reactive instead of being proactive, getting ahead of the storm before it becomes an issue. Routine maintenance on our road is the issue. And we need to make sure that we maintain our roads and do repair maintenance. It's not rocket science that when you're neglecting something that it will get dilapidated and fall apart. It's common science that we need to pave our roads every so often so we can improve the road conditions. Now, that's just typical science. Now, when we get to the other issue is equity. We need to make sure our neighborhood look just like every other neighborhood. Again, it's not rocket science, it's political will. And we need to make sure we put somebody at the helm, at the seat, who has that political will to make sure that we're not continuing to be reactive to issues that we see forthcoming. We need to make sure that we handle our business before we get the complaints in, before we break our axles on our car, before we crack our rims, before we get a flat tire. Initially, just like with all the other issues in Oakland, with the homelessness, with the blight, we need to start getting ahead of the storm.
Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Do you have any more comments? You have 10 seconds. Good. Okay, we are going.
Hello, my signal, it had kicked me out, but I'm back. My internet provider, they got a mouthful, and I said if it happened again, we gonna have major issues.
Okay,
So they got me back online. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you. We're gonna go to Miss Reed, candidate Reed. If you can unmute yourself. I'm gonna give you 2 minutes on the clock. Ready, go.
Thank you. We need to come together proactively to hear from the community on what that plan is and how we're actually tracking ourselves with that plan. What has not been added to address it, we need to create, prioritize, and best coordinate that infrastructure plan with the other council members to collaboratively get that vote of support. One council member does not make the decisions on those issues that are before us. I'm fortunate that I have the endorsement of 6 council members. I hope to work more collaboratively to fight and advocate for equitable and ongoing maintenance of our roads, of our community parks, of our recreation facilities. There are a number of areas within that we have not seen equitable outcomes. I've supported Measure KK and several of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission ballot measures. I've worked with that commission in times past for transit related funding and projects. I'll advocate at the city level. I'll advocate at the county level. I'll advocate at the state level. Through the relationships that I have the endorsement of Senator Skinner, Assemblymember Bonta, Assemblymember Wicks, and we need those relationships at all levels to ensure that not only are bond funds used and allocated appropriately at the local level to improve our infrastructure plans, our pedestrian and traffic safety plans, but that we've got accountability at all levels of those who serve our district and who serve our city. I will advocate for those equitable and ongoing outcomes. We have set aside money. Last year, we adopted that first 3-year paving plan, $100 million. They believed that it was with an equity focus, 100 miles of newly repaved streets. But we've got to do more to make sure that we have what we have demanded in having our streets paved and the attention that we need coming together collectively. When we have council meetings and other discussions, I think it's going to be even more critical in these next 4 years to hear the voice of District 7 at the table as that council member is advocating for us on these issues.
Thank you. Last candidate, candidate Jackson. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we do have money, and again, we pay taxes and all of those things, but for some reason, the resources don't seem to get to District 7. That we have money to do the potholes and do the streets right now, but we just don't get the resources and get the kind of help for the things we need. We seem to don't get it done, and I think it's because we don't have a voice at City Hall. I plan to be that voice. We're going to have action. I tell you something, when I work for the city, I learned one thing: the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And if you just kick back and wait for them to keep meeting and meeting and meeting, they have money. What the city has a tendency to do is take the money that's allocated to fill this, to do the streets and do the potholes in District 7 and they reallocate the money to somewhere else. They just have the power to move the money around the way they want to. We have to stop that. The money that's for District 7 need to come to District 7 to do the things we need to do. And I tell you, when we start calling 311 and we get the community together and everybody's calling, we start calling the mayor, bombarding them with calls, say, hey, we demand our rights. We demand the resources that we need to fix our streets. And they put these little plugs in the potholes. They last about 6 months. And the next thing you know, the pothole is back. It is bigger than what it was before. That's not fixing the problem, putting a Band-Aid on it like that. We need to redo the streets. They're old and they're dilapidated and they've been unattended for too many years. And we have had nobody at City Hall to really put up a fuss like we should have had a voice at City Hall. I plan to be that voice. I'm already connected getting streets done. We just did Spencer Street and we're working on other streets. I've been putting up a fight, arguing with them about do our city, do our district, do District 7. And they've been trying to do it. I'm noticing right now. I know we can do more with all of us coming together, making a fuss, being that squeaky wheel.
Thank you very much. Question number 8 on the list. Reflect on the role of NCPC in the community during the current defund movement and how crime might be impacted. So the question again is, reflect on the role of NCPC in the community during the current defund the police movement and how crime might be affected. So we are going to first go to candidate Tatman. I am going to unmute you and I give you 2 minutes on the clock.
I had a feeling I'd be first, so I came prepared. Look, we know this conversation is going around nationwide, not just in Oakland. And we got to look at the reasons why this conversation is happening. The continuance of killing unarmed Black men, the continuance of racial profiling and implicit bias, the continuance of an unjust injustice system that was built to house us in incarceration, the continuance of the lack of resources in a community to get people with livable wages so they won't conduct in such activities. The continuance is the key word. The continuance of still violent crime. 75 right now in the city of Oakland, and we've been in shelter in place for the past 5 months. What we've been doing is not working. We need to reimagine everything at this point. We need to reimagine equitable economic development. We need to reimagine homelessness. We need to reimagine affordable housing. And we need to reimagine OPD. And we need to reallocate funds so we can put them back in the community to try to change the path that we've been on for the past 50 years. I was born in '84. This has been happening well and way beyond me, but we're still talking about this 50, 60 years later. We need to reimagine how we get out in the community. So I feel that we should reallocate funding and put them in certain programs. This might mean putting more funding in NCPC program, but cutting other areas in the police budget. This might mean reallocating more funding to the 911 operation, but recutting and reallocating from the OPD budget in other areas. We need to reimagine this.
Thank you. We're going to move on to candidate Jackson. Mr. Jackson, if you can go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think the NCPC chairman and chair ladies need to be involved with the conversation about defunding the police, because a lot of times people don't even live in our community, but they make decisions for us that we have to live by. I think we would have more effective defunding of the police department if the NCPC chair people, presidents would be able to come to the table to help raise their voices for the residents, to tell the people what we need to take care and what we want to see. Well, some people say we don't need this, we don't listen. Some of them don't even live in our district. They don't know what we're up against. They don't know what we face. We need certain things in District 7. And I think we're more able to tell you what we need rather than you keep telling us what we need. And I think that day should be over. It's time for us, the citizens of District 7, to raise our voices in unity so we can get the kind of coverage that we need. I also made a note that we need to get the residents of District 7 more involved with fighting crime. We could do it together. We could watch out for each other. We used to have neighborhood watch. It was going really good. We could put more lighting in the community. That LAD assessment is $15 million every year. And they took the money and they're doing other things with parks and recs and that kind of thing. They need to put that money back in lighting and light up our areas a little bit more. The Bible talks about people do bad things when it's dark. So if we lighten up the area, especially at night, we can make sure that crime would disappear in a heartbeat. I'm telling you. So we have a lot of conditions that can be abated. There's money that's there to do the abatement. The money's not getting to District 7. I plan on making sure every dime that's due District 7 is going to come to District 7, and it's going to go to those things that is earmarked to go to. That's the kind of leader I'm going to provide, being the city council member for District 7.
Thank you. Next, we have candidate Hodge. Ms. Hodge, if you can unmute yourself, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Okay, great. NCPC is important, an important staple in our community, and we have to people want safety, essentially. You and I, we want safety in our communities. We want to be able to leave our doors open and let the breeze come in on the hot, sunny days. We want to be able to walk our dogs around the corner without feeling like we're going to get ran over by someone doing a donut, or, the local, a person who's coming around to deliver their packages, that they're going to be there while they're walking their dog and don't have to be stationed in your home until you receive that package. So we all want safety. Defunding is just something that nationally has come into play. It's rhetoric, but it's not right for our community. We have a lot of different challenges that we're faced with. This did not happen overnight. This is a challenge that has happened over the last 24 years under Reid leadership. I know for a fact, as I said, a lifelong resident, I've watched Ignacio de la Fuente change his community and get the funding that he wanted. When we had Desi Woods Jones here serving as our council person, she got the job done. When we had Nate Miley serving as a council person, we watched him get the job done. We need someone that's going to be actionable, who's going to be an advocate, not trying to and attempting to transfer leadership to someone else in order to try and hold on to power. We need change. The time is now. We have watched the unmasking of what has happened to non-responsive leadership. We've got to have someone in that office who is an advocate for District 7, who cares about District 7, whose attempt is not to transfer, but is to support District 7 so that we can come out of the deterioration that we've been sitting in for the last many years.
Thank you, candidate Hodge. The question is, reflect on the role of NCPC in the community during the current defund the police movement and how crime might be impacted. We're going to go to Ms. Reid. Candidate Reid, I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Thank you. I believe that there's a critical role that NCPC should play in the community with strategizing in community with city leaders, county leaders, ensuring that we equitably fund the NCPC and work proactively more to collaborate and coordinate around the issues that we have. Every NCPC has its own set of priorities and goals, and we need to work to understand what those goals and those priorities are to deliver more effectively together. As I shared, I work with Youth Alive on their advocacy committee, and that focus, I believe, is very much similar to the NCPC's: violence prevention, intervention, and I would even add to healing and the trauma care that our community needs. OPD recently launched their OPD Cares program. I'm not sure how much NCPC weighed in on what OPD Cares program will look like, or even how, as they are increasing the resources into District 7, where those resources are being deployed. And are those areas and are those goals aligned with that of the NCPC? Whether it's ensuring well-lit pathways and parks and open space, or safe business corridors, or just overall safety. Many of us live under the fear and the threat of violence, just getting out of our car or coming into our home. And so I support the NCPC's representation on the task force to reimagine public safety goals and how those divestment of goals and funding, what that means for us in our community. Are we being heard at that table? Are our issues elevated at that table? Do we have our voice to make sure that the outcomes that are being discussed deliver and deliver equitably for us? I believe that it's important that we do reimagine how we invest those dollars, but I believe that we should be at the table with NCPC and with the city council member to make sure that we are aligned on those goals, that we are strategized and in unity around how we actually push forward that. Funding the Department of Violence Prevention efforts, I believe, is another area that we can work in partnership with NCPC.
Thank you. Thank you, candidate Reed. Next, we have candidate Clay. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Thank you. Let's start with Oakland spends more money on its policing than any other major city, 41%. And that's money that is not working because we see violence going up. We've seen that, latest tick of violence and murders just in the last several weeks. And I think NCPCs understand as well as anyone, probably better, that we're battling crime on a large scale as a concept more than we're battling individual criminals. So smarter policing is not necessarily defunding the policing. We may need to reimagine what public safety looks like, because that may involve less funding here and more funding here to get better police, better investigative services, better technology, so we can solve the serious crimes of homicides and sexual assaults and things of that nature. The point is we need to be doing more than just throwing money at the problem, which is what we've been doing for decades. And that's where the role of NCPCs come in, because they're the residents that are firsthand, that deal with the police. And it also, the NCPCs also build that trust that we so need and has been lacking between police and our community. And that's one thing we really have to figure out how to do more. So I think one of the solutions is encouraging more of a role with NCPCs so people can talk about what their issues are, because I do think police have a tough job doing what they're doing. However, I don't think police prevent crime. They investigate crime. They come after the crime has happened. So we need to figure out where can we spend our money in housing, in mental health, in other types of services that will prevent crimes from happening, and making sure that the NCPCs have that input into how that money's being spent, because they're the ones who know firsthand what's working, what's not, what type of changes they want to see, and they're the ones that are talking about the community that they want to envision, and that's what I believe we ought to be doing.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to our 9th question. Can you identify any issues that may present a conflict of interest if elected? If so, what are they, and how would you handle them when you're voting? So we are going to go first to candidate Tatman. I'm going to unmute you and give you 2 minutes on the clock.
I'm definitely playing the lotto after this. I think I'm gonna hit the jackpot. You guys are just calling on me first every time.
Fixing the ball.
My birthday month. I'm a Libra, October 13th. It's my, we're aligned with the stars and the moon right now. So I'm gonna play that number. And if I hit the jackpot, I'm gonna make sure I get everybody on this Zoom a few bucks. I think personally, I don't have no conflict of interest. But on a larger.
Oh no. Hold on. That was completely my fault. Mr. Clay, I muted the wrong person. We're gonna hold on one second.
Okay.
My bad. Candidate Tatman, I'm gonna put 2 minutes back on the clock for you. My apologies.
Okay, y'all caught the first bit of what I said, right?
Yeah, you're gonna give us some money.
Yeah, of course. That's gonna eat. But I think we need to get, personally, I don't have no conflict of interest, but I think we do need to get dirty money out of politics, and we need to get special interests out of government, because whenever you put that money into politics, they use that money to try to influence your decision making. You don't need to pay for my decision making. And I answer to the public, the community, and you guys tell me what I need to do and how I need to move. Because I will offer a seat at the table to every community member. mean, within my first 60 days, I plan on meeting with community partners, community organizations, and community members to bring everybody to the seat so they can have it at the table, so we can work on the issues that we need to work on to move D7 forward. Now, I also will establish a District 7 commission to hold me accountable to oversee my actions, because we do need to hold our elected officials accountable, and not just during election year, but throughout the duration of the term. So I will put this group together to be on my back. And I told people out in the streets when I'm canvassing, if I'm not doing what I said I was gonna do, I'm old school, man. Pop me in the back of my head. I got plenty of those growing up with my dad, because, you know, I always had a little smart mouth on me, but I had the grades to back it up. So my parents couldn't do much with me. They just was like, you, oh boy, you made for debates. And I'm here now debating my issues and my stance on how we should move D7 forward. And we need to move D7 forward with accountability and bringing people of the community to the table so we can move onward together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are going to go to candidate Clay. I'm going to unmute you and give you 2 minutes on the clock, okay? Go ahead.
Yes, conflict of interest. I'm well acquainted with the concept, and there are no issues that I think would present a conflict of interest if when I'm elected for a city council role. Saying that, however, you know, people ask me, because I don't have those special interest financing and those big donors. So people ask me, you know, well, why are you running? You know, who are you running for? Why'd you get in the race so late? I got in the race because I just didn't see the change, and I just couldn't take the state of District 7 being the way it is for so long, walking through garbage, talking to the kids, seeing them without hope, without opportunities. And I knew I had done a lot of these things. I've worked on large scale economic development projects. I've worked with the kids. I've worked in juvenile hall. I've worked in developing housing. I've worked in creating green jobs, sustainable living wage jobs. So I felt that I had to get in, because I could only blame myself if I didn't, for the conditions of District 7 if I didn't try. And since knowing I have that experience, that courage, that vision, I got in the race. I don't have any conflicts that I know about. And I expect to be able to engage our community to really create, because that's the only person, that's the only group that I'm representing are the residents of District 7, and then secondly, the residents of Oakland. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I'm running, not for any special interest, and I don't have any conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are going to move to Miss Marcy Hodge. Candidate Hodge, if you can unmute yourself, I will give you 2 minutes on the clock, okay?
Okay, I'll be short. I do not have any allegiance, with the exception that my allegiance is toward, I'm sorry, I do not have any conflict of interest. My only conflict of interest is my allegiance towards District 7. We've got to have someone that's going to be in that seat that is going to advocate for our district. We have been left to sit in deterioration. It doesn't just happen overnight. It happens through a lack of leadership. And so we need someone who cares about Oakland. Oakland is in my heart. I was raised here in East Oakland. I've never left. I purchased homes, opened up businesses here in District 7 because I have an allegiance to this area. This is a place that I want to live and die. I don't want to have to move to another part of the city to just try to get, you know, some sense of normalcy. We've been lulled to sleep to drive. I expect driving every day, whether it's going to the grocery store, depending on where I am. I expect that I've got to be on guard for a speeding car coming down MacArthur or 66 or, you know, wherever I am here in the East Oakland area. It surprises me, and I'm sure it surprises you when you're in different areas, Walnut Creek, in the Rockridge area, North Oakland, where people tend to drive a little bit more normal, a little bit more easy to walk across the streets without being concerned about being hit. It's a culture that we've created here in District 7 that has to stop. And so within my first 100 days, every asset that I look at will be focused on, whether it's blight, homelessness, or affordable housing. educate, eradicate, and enforce to ensure that we are resolving these challenges and issues that we are facing here in East Oakland.
Thank you. Next, we are going to go to Ms. Reed. Can you identify any issues that may present a conflict of interest if elected? If so, what are they and how would you handle them when voting? I'm going to unmute you. If you can unmute yourself, I'm going to give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Okay. I do not have any issues that I'm aware of that would be in conflict of interest in serving in the role as council member. I do have the leadership skills. I have the lived and policy experience that I believe is necessary to protect, preserve, and prioritize the needs of our citizens citywide, and especially more equitably for those of us who live in East Oakland District 7, who've experienced poverty, disparities, and too many cycles of inequity for too long. And as we face the economic crisis before us, I'm ready to tackle the city and the district issues with sound judgment, strategic planning, transparency, accountability, accessibility, integrity, and collaborative execution with the NCPC and other community organizations to deliver on more equitable outcomes for us. I will continue to work to exercise wisdom that I've gained in managing multi-million-dollar budgets and revenue streams, working in partnerships with a number of organizations. I serve on the board of Satellite Affordable Housing, where we advocate for housing equity at the local and state level. I serve on the Advocacy Committee for Youth Alive, where we advocate on local and statewide policies and legislation, funding for violence prevention, intervention, healing, trauma care, along with calling on the reallocation for our public safety dollars to be reinvested into more outcomes that benefit our community. I serve as the board president for Community Education Partnerships, where we work to increase opportunities for homeless and unhoused youth who are highly mobile, just as I was growing up, going from one school to the next, living housing instability of my own for many years of my upbringing and not having my own housing stability until I was a junior in high school. I serve on the board of East Oakland Youth Development Center to support youth academic success and leadership program. I serve as a state policy board advisor for BWAPA. Those and many other community roles, my credibility, my track record of leadership and strengthening support at the table of community and advocating for our issues is well stable. And I believe that you will be able to recognize that in speaking with those organizations and in the integrity that I show up and serve.
Thank you, candidate Reed. We're going to move to candidate Jackson. If you can unmute yourself, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock, okay?
There you go. Now I can. Well,
At 2 minutes.
there it goes. Okay, thank you. First of all, I cannot identify with any issues that may present a conflict of interest when I am elected. If I do discover there are some, I will champion the issue and promote it, but recuse myself from voting. Also, I will have an office in the community. I haven't heard anybody say that, but I will be accessible for the residents. I will be in the community, not downtown. You won't have to look for me. I will be visible in the community because I live here. I will be there. I'm there in the visible. I'm visible now in the community, and people know me because I'm in the community. I've been in the community. I bought my first house at 364 Clara Street. I grew up at 370 Burlwood, right around the corner. So I've been in Oakland all my life. I'm not going anywhere. Went to Ozion, and now I live up off a mountain. So I know the community. I know the area. I've been here for a long time. And so what I'm bringing to the table that may be a conflict of interest might be being honest and having integrity, because I believe a lot of things go on at City Hall. We never know about it. And when we do find out about it, it's too late. I believe there's a diabolical plan going on right now for District 7, which they're trying to put together on us, and they're hoping we don't find out about it. But when I go down there, I'm going to come back and tell all of you exactly what they're planning for District 7, so you'll know before it happens. So we'll have an opportunity to change whatever it is they plan for District 7. I think it's terrible what they're doing, and they're not honest. They're disingenuous when it comes down to what's really going on for our community, what the plans are. You see those roads out there, how they got the streets and all that? Did you have any input on how that was done? No. Did you know what was going on? No. Did they ask you anything about it? No. Somebody put it there because they said this is the way we want it. We were not included, not even at the table. I'm going to change all that when I become city councilman.
Thank you. We're gonna move on. Oh, that was it. That's our last candidate for that question. Our final question of the evening is, how will you make yourself available to the community? For example, will you have regular coffee hours, attend a farmer's market, or have regular community walks? We are going to start with candidate Reed. If you
Yes.
can go ahead, I will give you 2 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
I absolutely think all of the areas that you lifted up are critical for us to coordinate and convene proactively, to have an established cadence of how we come together. I believe that that's something that we can establish from the beginning, if elected into this role, coming together with the community groups, the NCPCs, and those who play an active role in our community to best coordinate. One, to even recognize who are all the groups out there and who are all the group leaders, to make sure that they're identified and that we coordinate, proactively coming together to have conversation and to work together on the issues that we are facing and working to address in our district. I coordinate the opportunity now in my role at PG&E. I'm the public affairs lead, and I work in partnership with elected officials from the cities of Hercules to the cities of Fremont, including Alameda County. I have established relationships with those leaders and those city leaders and county leaders. We come together through my role to bridge the gap between city issues, company issues, community issues, bringing community to the table, meeting community where they are. I lead our team to show up in their designated roles, to not sit behind the walls of PG&E, but to come out and address those issues more proactively and to make sure that we've got the right people at the table. That is what I commit to doing as the council member. If you speak with any of those city leads that I support in now, I fight for community. I fight to advocate for the issues of community, to make sure that our community has what it should have in how we show up in serving them as a company. And I will do the same in my accountability role as a council member. I believe that those meetings should be frequent, and we can decide within each group what that frequency and what that cadence looks like. But I will be accessible. I am transparent. I do have wisdom and wise counsel that I bring to the table, and that I also lean and glean from those who have been serving and strengthening our community for much longer than I have. And so I value your role, your leadership, and your experience in partnership with me throughout the district. And I certainly support having a satellite office.
We are going to move on to candidate Tatman. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I will give you 2 minutes on the clock to answer, how will you make yourself available to the community? For example, will you have regular coffee hours, attend a farmer's market, or have regular community walks?
All of the above. Not only will I make myself readily available, or a member of my staff that I will put in place, we will have scheduled meetings throughout District 7 weekly for every neighborhood to have access to me. And I will show up personally to all the meetings, because that is a part of my job, and that's showing my dedication to the community to increase transparency and to make sure people can rely on me when they contact my office for urgent matters. I will show up to the coffee shops, like I'm doing now, walk around, talk to small business owners. I spoke to a small business owner on International, the alternator shop. He had 2 abandoned cars in front of his shop for the past 3 months, and he told me he paid over $16,000 in taxes a year. I will get out in the community and make sure these issues are not an issue. I will make sure that people have my contact numbers, my office hours, and I will put multiple offices in the district. I will put one at Foothill Square to catch the end of D7. I will put one near Castlemont High School to catch the middle of D7. And I'll put one in the Alphabet Lands, everybody who know ABCD Street, to make sure that we have representation all throughout the district. My staff will have dedicated show us spots outside the City Hall office on certain days, so those offices, that satellite, can be staffed that can take questions and issues from the community. Look, I'm a government affairs manager. I have connections with the state and federal level. I work with a lot of our elected officials. I had the connections to pull resources into Oakland to make D7 thrive, and that's what I plan on doing.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to candidate Jackson. I will give you 2 minutes on the clock, candidate Jackson. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. As I already said, I'll have an office in the community where I plan on spending the majority of my time. I'll be visible in the district just like I am now. Staying connected with the NCPC, going to the meetings, and I'm going to do the job that you've elected me to do, handling your complaints and your problems. I'll make it my business to be visible in the community. I will also make it a point to come to the meetings. I plan on attending every single one of them across the district. And my plan is to put neighbor back in hood. So we're going to work together as a collaborative. We're going to galvanize the community, because I know one thing: when we come together, we create a force that nobody can deal with. And I guarantee you, we're going to get everything that we need, because we're going to come together and do it. When I go down to City Hall, I'm going to need you to come down to City Hall with me. And especially when we have things that impact our community in particular, I want you all to come down and support me when I stand up for District 7. I want them to be able to see District 7 showing up at City Hall saying, yeah, that's what we want. I'll be out front, but I certainly need you to be behind me. We can get everything done that we need to have done. We just need the right leadership, proven leadership, trusted leadership. And I want you to know I'm the man for the job. I'm up for it. I'm ready for it. I just need you to help me in supporting me to become the next city councilman for District 7. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to go to candidate Hodge. Ms. Hodge, I will unmute you and give you 2 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Yes, within my first 100 days and continuing on, I want to create a new culture for District 7. Zoom meetings, meet and greets are the top of the list. As a matter of fact, we're having a meet and greet this Wednesday from 2 to 3, and you can either email me or contact me, and we can send you that information. It'll be twice a month, the top of the month with your council person, myself, and the latter end of the month will be with staff. I need everyone in District 7 to not only get to know me, but to also get to know my staff, as well as they get to know you. So those are important. That would happen twice a month. I would start a farmer's market. District 7 hasn't really ever had a farmer's market. And so I think that the Foothill Square area is perfect. And also trying to partner with Lauren to partner with District 6 and 7 to create those farmer markets. Desley Brooks used to have a farmer's market along the Mountain Boulevard area, and I thought that was perfect. It would be something that I would tend to attend to. And so we've got to learn how to bring these communities together. With the Beautification Council, I will be doing walks. I'm already doing those walks in areas that sometimes I miss, that are high in volume with blight and encampments. And so those are areas that I would do. I would also be a conduit between the hills and the flatlands. Like I said, I go between 3 houses every day, from the hills to the flatlands. I understand what the issues are. I know them. I'm on the ground. I know the challenges that we face. We've got to come together as one so that we can resolve all of these issues together.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to Mr. Aaron Clay. You can go ahead and unmute yourself. I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock.
Excuse me. So when I'm elected, I absolutely want to make myself available to the community. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I'm running. When I was doing my petitions and talking to people about whether I should run, that was one of the biggest concerns. I mean, along with homelessness and all those other things, it was just that the people, the community, the residents felt disrespected, like they felt ignored. One person said, you know, I'll sign your petition, but I'm not going to vote because nobody cares anyway. Nobody cares about District 7. So we have to make ourselves available to community. We have to show the community that we're going to be there for them. And so I would absolutely have regular meetings. I would like to have a monthly community improvement roundtable with the community institutions, all the nonprofits that are really doing the work in the community right now on a monthly basis. And then also have another community meeting that's open to everybody that would rotate in the different neighborhoods. District 7 is one of the largest is the largest district in the city with a lot of different neighborhoods. And so we shouldn't just place it in one place. I would definitely have an office in the district, but we should also have pop-ups and special meet and greets in all the neighborhoods so that those people can not only feel, but be involved in creating the vision of the community that they want to live in. And I think that's the type of regular input that we need for a city council person to do their job. As far as a farmer's market, absolutely. I've already talked about food scarcity and the issues that we have in District 7 more than any other district dealing with hunger. So, and also the importance of something like a farmer's market is people are more willing to talk about what's on their minds when it's at a more informal thing than when it's on Zoom or a public event where there's, like a city council meeting. So talking to those people one-on-one at something very informal like a farmer's market is extremely important. And I think those are the types of things that we need. We need many and we need regular interaction with our community, or else this re-envisioning our community is not going to work.
Okay. Thank you very much. That was the final question of the evening. Let's check in with the host again. Otha, did you get it fixed? No? Okay. We are going to go into concluding remarks. Every candidate will have 2 minutes to make some concluding remarks and reflect on the evening. We're going to start in alphabetical order again. So we are going to start with Mr. Clay and end with Mr. Totman. So Mr. Clay, 2 minutes on the clock, some concluding remarks.
Great, thank you very much. So like I said in the start, I really want to thank the NCPCs for this because your role is so important. I've sat in on a few of them recently, but that's the way we hear what's really going on in the streets, and we hear directly from the residents and see that interaction with the police department as far as the things they are doing, because they are doing things. We just have to figure out how we can improve on that, and that's where the role of the NCPCs come in. So my name is Aaron Clay. I'm running for city council for District 7 because I grew up in Oakland and I know the condition of District 7. And my vision is to engage our community to reimagine what they want for themselves now, for their families, and in 10 years, in 20 years, and work with them to create that vision, create that community, that reality together. And I know the condition. People tell me they can't bike down the street because of the garbage. When I teach at the schools, they tell me, I know I'm going to be homeless because everybody else is. Or they ask me, don't tell my friends that I probably won't see them ever again because we're getting kicked out of our house and we have no place to go. So I know the plight and the issues and the emotions and the traumas of District 7 residents. And we need somebody in District 7 not just to say that these things are wrong and they want change, but we need somebody who has vision, who has some experience and courage to bring some wins now. We need strategies. We need experience on the technical side to understand where we're going to get that money from. It's easy to say that, I'm going to ask for money from the federal government, the state government. State government doesn't have any money right now after this COVID situation. You have to know how to navigate the federal government. The city's not going to have money. So these are real issues that we're going to have to figure out because they're not going to be easy issues to deal with. And I am that progressive candidate that can create real change by focusing on housing for all residents, by creating a local economic job base, youth development, and community house. I ask for your support for your #1 vote for Oakland City Council District 7.
Candidate Clay. Next, we're going to go to Candidate Hodge. Candidate Hodge, if you can unmute yourself, I'll give you 2 minutes to make some concluding remarks.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And again, thank you for this evening with the NCPC. It's been definitely a great conversation and discussion around the issues that we are facing here in District 7. District 7 has to be rescued. Let's make no mistake about it. District 7 is in a state, and I'll say it again, of deterioration. We have to rescue District 7 out of the Reed administration and carefully place it in the hands of someone who is going to be an advocate, who is going to be a fighter, and someone who cares, most importantly, about District 7. We need someone who is going to be concerned about us, not just the flats, not just the hills, but also the flatlands. We need someone who comprehensively can bring the district together to move about and have change. My ask of you is to ensure when you elect me, to make sure that I have that wind behind my back so that we can get the things done. If those phone calls need to be called to other council members to make sure that they understand that we are on the mark and that we're pushing to change District 7 and we need those funds where we need them, I need you to get on that phone, call the other members, as well as the mayor, as well as the city administrator, to ensure that we get what's owed to us. I'm asking you to support me because we need blight removal. How you see a thing is how you're going to treat it. That's why we have so many people coming from other cities dumping in the city of Oakland. We have a challenge with the expanding homelessness. We've got to curb that expansion. We need to make sure that we're stabilizing families. We have to have safety in our neighborhoods. It is what makes up a neighborhood is when you feel safe. Then you feel safe to go to your neighbor. Then you feel safe to walk your dog. Then you feel safe to move about and go to the grocery store at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Job creation, of course, creates stability. We have to ensure that we're moving towards the mark to change District 7. My name is Marcy Hodge, and I'm asking for your support, whether it's your first choice or second choice. Marcy Hodge for your candidate for District 7.
Candidate Jackson, we're going to move to you now. So you can unmute yourself and I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock to make some concluding remarks.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Judith Christopher. You've been a wonderful host and moderator, and I certainly appreciate all that you've done. And all of you that's a part of 32X NCPC, thank you all for allowing me to come and speak with you tonight. In closing, I would like to just say that I don't have to start from scratch when elected for city councilman. I've already been working in District 7 for a number of years. Again, 36 years. I pastored the Axville Gospel Church. And again, I'm connected. I've already been exposed to everything we've talked about tonight. I've already been working on the issues and the problems. I have the evidence to prove it. I can show you what I've done in all of the years I've been here in the city of Oakland. I'm not talking about what I'm going to do when I get elected. I'm not talking about the boards I sat on and all of that good stuff. I'm talking about what I've actually done for the past 36 years in the city of Oakland. And I'm telling you, if given the opportunity, I guarantee you we can get the job done in District 7 and we can have everything you all are asking for as we come together as a district with solidarity, with collaboration. We can get those things that we need, that we pay taxes for, that we deserve and should have. We can have those things as we work together. I promise you that. I only need your support. And of course, I need your vote. And not like Marcy, I want to be number one. So vote for me for number one. And I would appreciate your support. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm Bishop Robert Bob Jackson, and I plan on being your next city council member. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move on to candidate Reed. Candidate Reed, if you can unmute yourself, I'll give you 2 minutes on the clock to make some concluding remarks.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, B32X, and all the work that you do in the neighborhood that I live in. I've never lived in a pandemic, but I've lived through some seasons of life that I didn't think that I was going to recover or live through, like many D7 families feel today, hungry, unhoused, and struggling. I've lived many of the issues and the challenges that we face, and it's that resilience that motivates me now as a community leader doing the work, fighting for justice, challenging inequity, and working to influence equitable outcomes for us. We need a passionate, experienced, strong leader fighting for us more at City Hall, working to deliver real solutions together, stronger together with a more unified voice on the issues that we face. We must benefit from the budget actions, the policies, the practices to give our children the best education outcomes, to sustain our small businesses, to make sure that we've got families sustaining careers with pay equity, mental health care, clean, healthy, safe environments for us to live and thrive in. As a senior field rep for then Assemblymember Skinner, I advocated for policies, public safety and gun violence prevention policies, low wage worker rights, pay equity, housing policies, job training programs, legislation for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated families, and other critical efforts that benefited us. I will continue to engage with our NCPCs, our grassroots community partners that I'm in relationship with now, doing merchant walks that I lead right now, connecting virtually in newsletters, meeting safely in the community to hear from you, to update you, to advocate with you for courageous policies and empower our residents and small businesses to thrive with real community-driven benefits because you're at the table. And so I know that we can do more together. I am committed in relationship with all those who are here, with those in other community relationships, to work together to make sure that we have the community that moves East Oakland forward for all of us now. Please log on to readforoakland.com to hear more about my issues and my endorsers.
Thank you, candidate Reed. And now we're going to go to candidate Tatman. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself, I will give you 2 minutes on the clock to make some concluding remarks.
Thank you. I just want to share this. Navigating government is what I'm doing right now, and we have great success with getting resources back to the community. Thank you, B32X, NPCP, for this opportunity. I just want to share this with you guys. At the beginning of the year, I planned on running a strong campaign, but the pandemic had me focus, reshift my focus on helping the community. I ran an emergency pop-up pantry in which we were serving over 1,200 families a day because people have food security issues. So when we talk about food insecurities, this is something that I have experience dealing with. When we talk about homelessness, I house the homeless, 200 plus families. When we talking about providing shelter, I ran an emergency shelter. This is all experience I have. And since the 3 months I jumped back in this race, since the community reached out to me in July, I racked up a slew of endorsements because they believe in my vision, from Our Revolution to the Alameda Central Labor Council, to the SEIU, to the National Union Healthcare Workers, to Planned Parenthood Marmonte, to Victor Aguilar, Saliandro City Council, Melvin Landry, Oakland Rebels, a group that raised me in Oakland I played basketball for, Oakland Dynamite, Damian Lillard, a host of small businesses, because they support me. They support my vision, and they know I'm from Oakland, and I will always bring a seat to the table for them to lean on when they need issues fixed in our community. They can trust me. And we need to move together as one to move D7 onward. Please check out my website at votemarshawn.com. You guys probably seen I flew an airplane over Oakland Saturday.
Thank you, candidate
For 3
Tatman.
months, a campaigner. That's
Thank
what
you, candidate Tatman.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I want to thank everyone. I want to start with Otha, the chair of 32X. He is wonderful to work with while his microphone isn't working. Otha, can you give him a wave so they can see you? There's Otha. And I also wanted to introduce Ms. Paulette Johnson. Paulette, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead, unmute yourself and tell people about your next meeting. Go ahead.
First, I'd like to thank all the candidates for attending our forum, and also our neighborhood. Thank you very much. Our next meeting is October 15th at 7 p.m. It's via Zoom. And I don't know how to, maybe Judith, you can give them some information on the Zoom account number.
Sure. So because of COVID, a lot of the neighborhood council meetings are virtual now. So you can reach out to me. My email address is jchristopher@oaklandca.gov. It's also on the internet, easy to find. You can email me and I'll get you the link and all the information on behalf of the NCPC so you can join as well. It's a good chance to get to know your neighbors, get to know city staff, get to know your community resource officer. You can also email me and I will push out all the information for the candidates. And if you have follow-up questions, you can email them directly. So again, my email address is the letter J, Christopher@oaklandca.gov.
And the meeting is October 15th 2020 via Zoom. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you to all the candidates. Much appreciated that you spent your evening with us in the community. And that's all. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.